All right, if you're joining in late, we have a webinar coming up at 10 o'clock. So this class is going to be an hour class. The Thursday class will be 3 hours. We're going to make it 3 hours class on Thursday to catch up. And the assignment that I gave you guys on the traffic management, load balancers, content-driven network, please, I need to do the assignment before Thursday class because we'll be revising that on Thursday. Today we're going to continue with Azure Active Directory, granting permissions using rollback access control. I already explained the concept of RBAC in class. So today we're going to go straight into demo and demonstrate how that is done, right? So let's get back. So no, I don't want to connect to this one. So granting permissions are free, creating logins, so you don't have to delete those logins that you did in class. So please don't delete them. So in the previous class, what we did is that we ended up creating a server, right? And making the subgroup the server admin for that server. So I have this server that I created in class, and we made the, if you look here, if you go under, scroll down here under Azure Active Directory admin for this account, for this server, you can only give one Azure Active Directory admin. And if you have multiple people in the group that needs that same permission, what you should do is that you have to go back to the AD and create a group and make that group the server admin, right? So we did it during the creation of the server, but even if you didn't do it, it is also easy. I can just go here and say remove. Now this server does not have a server admin anymore, right? So assuming that you had a server like this without any server admin, it is very easy. You can just go back here on the server itself, click on Azure Active Directory, and then set an admin to it. All right. So when you click set admin, it's going to browse back to all the users that you have in the Active Directory, and then you can either select a single user, right? You can select a single user and make that person an admin, for example, like this, and save, or you can select a group. So I'm going to go back and select a group and make that group the admin. Remember, you can only have one admin on the server. So just go here, click here, select, and save. And then this group now becomes the server admin. All right. So I want us to continue in that direction. Today, we talked about the different permissions in the level of the Active Directory, right? You guys saw how you can grant rules. There are a lot of inbuilt rules you can select from, depending on what that person needs at the level of AD. If you want someone to be able to manage the Active Directory, all you need to do is go online. If you ever find yourself later down the line, you forget this permission, just go online and then just type Active Directory built-in rules. And you have a series of Azure AD built-in rules that you can actually go through them and figure out what exactly type of role the person really needs, right? So these are all the rules that you can give at the level of the Active Directory. Some of them shows privilege. It means that once you're giving someone cloud device administrator, that's quite a lot of privilege that you're giving that person, and so on, right? Directory reader can read basic directory information commonly used to grant directory read access to application and guests, right? Remember, permissions is given to, we talked about server principal being either a user, a group, or an application, right? So you give permissions to all those things. Domain name administrator, what it does is that it can manage domain names and cloud and on premises. You have all these different permissions here. global administrator. That you see here, it says privilege. It's a privilege permission. And what if you grant someone global administrator, privilege roles, global administrator, what that person can do is that on the role and oh, hold on. This was actually explaining how to do that. This one explain how you can do it. Let me go back. So what this does, the global administrator is a high privilege permission that you're giving someone. Right? Global administrator can manage all aspects of Azure AD and Microsoft services and Azure AD identities. Right? Giving someone this permission, you should really be aware of what you're doing at the level of the Azure AD. Now, group administrator, members on this role can create, manage group settings like naming, expirations, policy, and view group activities and audit, right? So these are the different built-in AD permissions that you can give someone at the level of the Azure Active Directory, okay? So this is just a quick revision of what we did in class. But now we are going to go back into RBAC, right? Now permissions is either granted at the level of the Azure AD or at the level of the resource. And then we're talking about RBAC, we are actually referring now to giving someone permission at a particular scope for a particular reason, right? So now you can as well go online and still type RBAC built-in roles. Built-in roles. Now these are the Azure built-in roles, Azure RBAC, role-based access control. Now going in here, you can see these are the permissions that you grant to someone to be able to do activities on the server, not at a level of Active Directory, on the server in general, in Azure resources, right? For Azure resources, these are the built-in roles that you are going to do. But at the level of Azure AD, the other roles that I just showed you, those are the roles that you are going to be dealing with, right? Okay, so let's go back. Now, before I continue on this, I see a couple of hands up with the Azure AD. Yes, Ehi, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you compare privileged positions in the Active Directory to SA positions in SQL Server. Like, would that be a right comparison?
Yes, you can compare them, but they're not. There are specific built-in roles that are. There are some built-in roles that are just specific to Azure, right? For example,
yeah,
if I give
no,
you
like I'm saying, basically they hold the same kind of power, right?
Yes.
Or the specific to the activities that they are privileged to.
The permissions in Azure, if you give similar permission to Azure and on-prem, they will hold the same powers. For example, a domain admin in Azure is a domain admin in on-prem. And what most companies do these days is that they will do what is called Azure AD Sync, right? We're going to do that as well. What it does is that it synchronizes your on-premises Active Directory with Azure Active Directory. So when companies are moving to Azure, they already have their on-premises Active Directory, right? So they are not going to go to Azure and begin to create newer ones. All what they do, they just do Azure AD Sync, and then synchronizes that with Azure, and then move on from there. All right. Okay. There were two hands up. Who had his hand up?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just looking in the rules that you just showed. I saw something privilege. Privilege means that rule. I just wanted you to shed more light on that privilege.
Yeah. So there are privileged accounts, right? When you grant a privilege, is in the nutshell really means that permission has more privilege in doing certain things in an Azure, right? So there are permission. If I give someone a permission like read only, data reader, or a domain reader, that is really not a privileged account. But if I start giving you permissions like domain admin or global administrator, those are privileged accounts that needs to be treated with caution, because they have more access to resources that you grant at level of Active Directory than just a regular account. I was trying to see if I can see any more examples on that. Yeah. So when you are going through the different, Azure will any permission that warrants you to be careful before granting that will be tagged a privileged account, a privilege. Right? Make sense?
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Sorry, one more question. I know you share two links. You share one that is Azure role. What's the name of the first one? The first one you share before the Azure privilege role.
The first role, the second role is Azure RBAC built-in roles. The first one the second one is Azure RBAC built-in role. The second one I'm going to share, the first one I shared is AD, Azure Active Directory built-in role.
That's on-prem and Azure, right?
Those are mostly Azure.
Okay.
Azure.
No, the first one is on-prem, right?
No, all I'm showing is just Azure.
Okay. Okay.
On-prem doesn't have anything called RBAC.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
So what's the difference between the RBAC and the first one?
Well, like I'm going to talk about right now, is that the RBAC role helps you manage resources, right, in Azure. All the resources, management of those resources is controlled by the RBAC permission that you have. But the other permission is really at the level of the Azure Active Directory. How to manage Azure Active Directory. That is really where the difference is. So let me do it again. Azure RBAC built-in roles. Right. So built-in Azure RBAC built-in roles, in nutshell, will help you manage the different resources. Right. So, and they are classified based on, they are granted to you based on the server principal, the role assignment, and the scope. Right? On the scope. Remember, at the level of the Azure AD, there was no scope. We just granted permission. So the built-in roles in Azure RBAC, these are the major built-in roles. You have what is called a contributor role, the owner role, and reader role. These are the three major ones that you're going to come across. These three: contributor, owner, and reader. Now, what do they really do at the level of Azure? My screen is frozen. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This thing is frozen. Yeah, my mouse is frozen. That's why. Okay. And the screen also is frozen. Jesus. Anyway, so while I'm waiting for this, the contributor role, let me start with the highest role that you're going to come across. The highest role that you're going to deal with is the owner role, right? What the owner role does is that it gives you full access to the resources. Owner role grants you full access to the resource that you grant, that you'll be granted permission to. So if I give you owner role at the level of the subscription, what I'm simply saying is that every single resource under that subscription, you have unlimited access, right? So it grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles in Azure RBAC. That's it, with the owner. Then the reader role simply gives you permission to view all the resources, but you are not able to make any changes. right? And then the contributor role grants you full access to manage all resources. If I give someone contributor role, you can manage all the resources, but you cannot assign roles to someone using the Azure RBAC, right? Or you cannot manage assignment in Azure Blueprint or share images gallery, right? So you have that difference. The contributor role, the owner, and the reader role. Okay, so but that is the major role. But then once you know these three major roles, then everything starts going in that order. All right. Now, do you have one here? User access administrator. This one will let you manage user access to Azure resources. Just the access, right? User access. But then every other role in Azure right now, the RBAC role will be based on the resource. For example, if I now go into compute, what do you have under compute? If you go under compute, you have things like virtual machines, virtual machine scale sets, and so on, right? Now, the permissions that you're going to have now will be based off these three major permissions: the contributor, the owner, and the reader. So in this case here, we're really talking about virtual machine contributor. You see, disk backup reader, disk pool operator, and so on. So you see that they are all based off of these three major roles. Now, if you look at virtual machine, classic virtual machine contributor, it lets you manage classic virtual machines. But classic virtual machines have actually been deprecated. But you have what is called right now virtual machine contributor. All right. So if you keep going down a little bit, still on the under compute, you will see here virtual machine contributor role. What does this do? Now, if you want someone to be able to manage, create and manage virtual machine disks, install, run software, reset password, reboot virtual machines, extension, manage local accounts, then you're going to give somebody the virtual machine contributor role, right? That's what you give the person. Now, virtual machine user login, if you give someone this, the person view virtual machines in the portal and log in as a regular user, but can't do anything in that. Now, those are under contributor role. So you see the permissions now are under that. Now you move on to the next one, networking, right? You start seeing different permissions at level of networking. For example, CDN, endpoint contributor. You see, everything goes back to the three permissions up there. CDN profile contributor, CDN profile reader, DNS zone contributor, network contributor. If you give someone network contributor, what does the person do? Let you manage networks, but not access to them. You can only manage, but you cannot access them. Right? Now, if you want someone to have any permission higher than this, what do you give? The owner role. You give the owner role, and the person can do everything, all the resources. Now, private DNS zone contributor, traffic manager contributor. We just did traffic manager in this class. What do? We'll let you manage traffic managers profile, but does not let you control who has access to them. But you can manage them, but you can't control who has access with a traffic manager contributor. And it keeps going down. The next one in under storage, another resource, storage, backup operator, right? Or backup contributor. This backup contributor lets you manage backup service, right? Backup service, but can create vault and give access to others with a backup contributor role. Now, a backup operator will let you manage backup service, except removal of backups, vault creation, or giving access to others. So this guy here, they have very similar permissions, right? This one here will let you manage backup services, where you cannot create vault or give access to others. This one here will let you manage backup services, except removal of backup. So here you'll be able to remove backups, but with a backup operator, you cannot remove the backups. Or no, can you create vault or give access to others? Next one here, backup reader, will be able to read, but you can't make any changes. And that goes on in that order, based on what resources that has to do with storage, right? You can see the list is very long. You can go down and check. But they keep going down, and you keep seeing that there are different permissions that comes in with Azure RBAC. These are things that you cannot memorize them, at level of databases. Now you go to databases, you have different kinds of databases. Like for example, you have Cosmos DB operator, Cosmos DB account reader role can read Azure Cosmos DB account access and so on, right? And then so on and keep to SQL database contributor will let you manage SQL databases, but not access to them, right? Also, you can manage their security related policy or their parent SQL server, right? Now you have here SQL managed instance contributor, let you manage SQL server instances and require network, but can't give access to other. SQL server contributor, right? Now here will let you manage SQL servers and databases, but not access to them, and not their security related policies. So you cannot make changes. You can manage them, but you are not able to actually go in there and give permission to other people that are there under that with this permission. So with that said, I'm going to leave this one, but there are just way too many things that you see we are barely moved, but all these different permissions here are permissions that you can give to someone based on what operation they are doing in Azure. But then next thing that happens that we know the inbuilt roles. We've touched the principle, the server principle, which is the roles, the accounts that you create at the level of Active Directory or the groups that you create at the level of Active Directory. Now, RBAC involves server principle, the role assignment, which is this inbuilt role I'm talking about, and then the scope. What do I mean by the scope? Now, if you go here again and you type management groups. Now, if you look at the management groups, let me see if there's a way I can do. There's a way to see the resource group. There's a way you can see the collapse and expand all. Okay. All right. Okay. So looking at this here, for example, at the level of management group, you have your subscription, right? You have your subscription. Management group, you have your subscription. And from the subscription level, if you go into subscription, what do you have? You have your resource groups, right? I'm trying to see if I can expand it. Generally, there's a way you can expand to really see the dependencies on that. Show me how to expand it. Okay. Anyway, so from the management group, as you see up here, right? You go to subscription. From your subscription, the next scope is resource group, right? From your resource group, the next scope under the resource group is the resources that are under the resource group. So that brings the complete role-based assignment. So if I have to assign a role, my goal is, what is the scope? Where am I assigning this to? If I assign someone global reader here or contributor role at the level of the management group, he inherits that permission all the way down to all the resources. Now, if I want to go granular, I can decide I'm under this management group, I might have 2 subscriptions. What if I don't want A to have permission to subscription B? I want her only to have permission to manage resources in subscription A. Then I can't grant her access at the level of management group. I have to go down and grant her access at the level of the subscription. Now, under the subscription, what do I have? I have resource groups, right? Once I give somebody access at the level of subscription, he or she inherits permission to all resources that are under that subscription. But what if there's a particular resource group that I don't want that person to access? Then I cannot give permission at that scope. I need to go a little bit granular down to the resource group. Now, what if I go to the resource group and I give it to resource group, right? Let's say I give it to this resource group, and this resource group have all these 3 resources, these 2 resources. What if I don't want that person to access this resource? It therefore means I need to go granular again. I need to go down to the resource, right? Now I am down to the resource now. So giving permission of this resource, that person will only be able to see that particular resource. Now, what do I mean? Let's do it. So we are on this resource right now. We need to give permission. So we need to use identity access management to give that permission. So you go on identity access management, and then here you can see view my access. What is my access at this particular resource, right? So if I can check my access level and see that the access that I do have here, I'm the owner, so I have full access. I also have reader role, reader, and reader. But once you have the owner role, all these other permissions are not necessary. All right. And you can see really on the scope where the permission is coming from. It says here, this subscription, right? And then here, I'm also the user access administrator. And I mean, this is inherited from the global management group, right? Or the root account. That's where this permission gets inherited, because this account is the account I use to create the Azure subscription. Any account that you use to create the Azure subscription automatically inherits this permission, because that's a root account for the subscription that you're using. All right. So now, with view permission, you can see what access you have. Now you can now go in and say add role assignment. Can say add role assignment. Now, what role do I want to give? We've gone through the different types of roles that exist out there. Now, you can now go ahead and search for the role that you want. Let me say owner. Wait a minute. Go back here. Add role assignment. Okay. Job function privilege. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I see the difference. There's a job function role and a privilege administrator roles. Job function roles is Azure has already pre-identified with this particular resource that we're dealing with. We're trying to add access to someone at the level of the Azure server, right? This is an Azure server. So they've automatically looked at that and say, someone with this granting access to this particular resource, these are some of the permissions that you can give to that person, right? A reader can view all resources, but does not allow you to make any changes and so on. So you can just pick from one of these job functions. But if you really want to give privilege, you can go into privilege role and you can see all the other permissions that I'm talking about, right? And for this particular account, so it already helps you reduce that down to that particular resource. You're not going to see anything here as VM machine contributor, because we're dealing with Azure server, right? That is also different. Here you can see owner, contributor, role-based access control, access administrator. These are really linked with the resource that we are already on. So if I now say, okay, I'm giving you owner role, this is the owner role here, and select owner role, and click next. Now we have selected the role. The scope we are already selected. Now we select the role. Now the server principal. Are you giving it to a group, user, or an application? Or to manage identity, right? So let's go to a group or user. And then you're going to select now, who do you want to give this access to? I had created Tayo last class, so I can check here. That's him. I want to give him that permission. Next, review, and assign. And that's it. As simple as that, right? Now, if I go back now and say, view access at this level, view access to this resource, you're going to see that there's going to be now Tayo pops up here. That's him. He's here. And he has the owner role to this resource. Right? Now check the other ones. Cyprian has the owner role but at the level of the subscription, it means that he has permission to this, which is inherited from that because the scope was given to him at the level of the subscription. So, and so on with the other ones. They're inherited. But if you go down a little bit now, you see there's even a group here. These are all groups, and they are inheriting their reader. This group inherits the reader permission from the subscription. This one as well from the subscription. This one as well, and so on. Right? If you keep going down, you see that this is my account, which is the access administrator, is the root account. You see it inherits its permission from the root because that account that was created with. And also this group here has this permission inherited from the subscription level. Right? So you can literally see how this permission works. This is at the level of this resource. So now let's go one step higher. This resource is sitting on the resource group AZ-8 resource group. Now I can go back to this resource group now and say, I'm going to grant permission not to a resource, but to a resource group. So I'm one scope higher, right? So I can now say role assignment at the level of the scope. The scope that I'm here is the resource group level scope. Now, what permission do I want to give? I want to give reader role at this permission. I'm giving reader role. And next, I want to give it this time around to a group. So I'll give it to the DBA group that I created, DBA one group, this one. And next, assign. So this is at the level of the scope, which is the resource group. It therefore means that any resource that gets created on this AZ-8 resource group, this DBA group will inherit the reader role. And if you now check the roles, you're going to see the DBA1, which is this one, now inherits the reader role at the level of this resource, right? It's at the level of this resource. Now, if I go into that resource now, this resource group, and pick a resource that is assigned to that resource group, if I go in, now if I pick a resource which is under a resource group and go on the access and view access, you're going to see that the DBA1 group that I just added, which is this one here, has also the reader role, not at the level of this resource, but at the level of the resource group. So it inherited the reader role from the resource group level because this resource is found under this resource group, right? Okay, so we are one scope higher on the level of resource group. Now, if we go another scope higher, which is at the level of the subscription, which is this one now, we are at the level of scope is subscription, and we do the same thing, access control, identity access management, and then we do add role assignment. And now this time around, we're going to give a contributor role. Let's do contributor role, contributor. Oh, this is not job function. Let me go on privilege. There's a contributor role and grant. This time around, I'm giving it to a particular person. I'm not giving it to a group. So let me give this to, Dennis, one here, select, right? You can always give any description of your choice if you want, but that's it, and then assign. Now, assigning him this permission now, if I now go all the way down into the scope, this is subscription. If I check view subscription, you're going to see that Dennis now has, this is him here, he has a contributor role at the level of this resource, right? Now, if I go down the line on the scope from subscription to resource groups, to resource groups, and I pick the AZ-8 resource group. And I also check the level. You're going to see that Dennis also has that same contributor role, but inherited from the subscription. Now, still at the level of the resource group. Now, if I go down to a resource, let me take out this VM backups resource and check identity access management here and view the permission. You're going to see he still has contributor role inherited from the subscription. You see? So this is how the permission get inherited from the level of subscription all the way down based on role-based access control. So this is how you would typically do this. Now, if I go back again and then let me go to this and get this contributor role. You can always script out these permissions, the built-in contributor role, and you can get a JSON script for that. You go on JSON, you're going to see this is the JSON script that was given for this this person, right? Dennis. This is the subscription that he has permission to. The role is the contributor role. And sometimes during certification, you are going to see a lot of these kinds of a JSON script that you need to interpret. And you see a JSON script like that, someone has to ask you, what can someone do with these kinds of permission? You see clearly here, the role name is a contributor, and it even tells you here, grant full access to manage all resources that does not, and so on, right? So you see this is how the JSON script comes out when we're dealing with it. All right, let me stop sharing here. Let's get someone share their screen and let's do it one more time. Or before we do that, any question? Any question? Yes, Renee?
Where does Azure policy, how does it have any role to play in this scenario?
Yes, the policies, those you see as we're granting all these permissions, and those are policies that we're applying to each one of them. So we're going to look into more on a few examples on policies and how you can apply, because all these ones you have right now are already built-in roles. You can customize your own, right? And have certain policy to be able to do certain things based on Azure policies. So policies really goes into this permission stuff. Right? All right. Good.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no more question, someone should share their screen and let's do one more time. Anyone should share their screen, please. You guys want to share your screen? Okay. All right. So in this case here, you had already done it, and you can clearly see this JSON script. Click on assignment. Click on assignment one more time. All right. So you see that it's assigned to this person, right? You can literally remove it. So that JSON script is what you are able to, you can copy that JSON script, right? And the next time you want to grant permission to somebody, you just use that JSON script and grant that. Okay. All right. Now let's go back and then grant permissions again to someone else. All right. Now this is a level of subscription. Let's give it owner, give owner role to someone else. So you click on access control, right? And then you click on add role assignment. And then definitely you will not see owner role on the job functions. You have to go on privilege administrator role and you can see owner role. That's it. Click on that Next, and you can see it. You've not, where's the person? You've not selected the person, the member. Yes. Who are you giving that to? All right. Okay. Then next. Right. That's it. Review and create. And that's granted. All right. So that owner, that person now, if you now log in with that account, you should be able to see all the resources. Remember how we started and we create an account at level of Active Directory and we log in and we're not able to see anything. Right now, I need you to log in with that account. Log in with that account now. If you've forgotten the password, you can go and reset it. So click, go back. You have to go to a level of Active Directory before you can see you have to go to Azure AD. Active Directory, good. And look for that user. Look for the user. Okay. Open that user, copy the user login credentials. It's down there. You can just copy. Yes, click on that and copy it to clipboard. Okay. Now log in with that user now. If you still remember, guys, at the beginning when we had login as a different user, Renee. Up here. You can sign in with a different account. No, don't sign out. Just sign in with a different account. Yes, that one. Okay. So sign in with that user now. If you forget the password, you can always go back and reset it. Renee, are you there? Hello, guys.
We are here.
Can you hear me? Okay, it looks like Renee is frozen.
So that reminds me, if somebody forget password here, and the person is not the one that grant the access, can the person click on forget password? Who will receive it?
You cannot reset your own password. You have to send a ticket to the whoever has. Now that goes back to the person who can reset password, right? Now, what is the permission? I want you guys to search that. What is the permission to be given to someone at a level of Active Directory to be able to reset passwords? What permission? Can someone tell me that? Renee, you got frozen. We couldn't hear you anymore.
User account admin or something.
User account admin?
Or something like that.
You sure or you're just guessing?
I think I saw it. It's a long list.
The list is long. Yes, that's true.
I didn't want to say
global-
administrator because administrators still have, I saw one particular for user management also.
Permission to be able to reset password in Azure AD. That's all you type up and then you check. What permission should I give someone? User, only the user or administrator in Azure. Yes. Administrator can reset password.
Yeah.
Right. You have to have the administrator permission to be able to reset password.
That's
right?
a global.
No, not the global administrator, just the administrator. All right. Okay. Yeah, Renee, you were sharing your screen. Did you? Okay. Now change the password.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you're logging in for our webinar, we will soon be through with this class. So just be patient. Enjoy a free Azure class, and we will be right there with you. Thank you. Battery running low.
It's my.
That's yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My own went down a few minutes ago, so I saw that. I thought it was mine. Okay, just ask me later. Click on ask me later. All right. Now you see, logging in now with that account, you're automatically able to see the resources that are here. Right? Because that Peter has the owner role on that subscription. Now, if you log in with someone that does not have that role, you're going to see that that person will not be able to see the resources. So your assignment that I'm giving you guys is to create a few resources on your portal and then create some different accounts and give them different rollback access control roles and see what they're able to do, verify that they can really do what the role says they can do. Is the assignment clear?
No.
Okay. Assignment, one more time, guys. I need you guys to create a few accounts in your Azure AD. Grant them necessary permission. And then log in with that account and verify that they can do what the account says they can do. Or verify that they cannot do what the account does not allow them to do. For example, if I give somebody a reader role, right? If I grant someone reader role at a level of subscription and log in with that account, can I create a VM? That's the question. Am I able to create a virtual machine, right? Or am I able to manage networking? Or if I give someone VM contributor role, can I set up virtual networks? Can I set up traffic manager? That's what I'm wanting you guys to do the assignment. So create different permissions, log in and try to do different things and see where the limit is. Or create different permissions, log in with those permissions and really see that they can do what the permission allows them to do. All right? Okay, very good. Any more questions or anybody having issues doing this? Can share your screen. Let's do it one more time. Or was the topic so easy? Anyway, it's a straightforward. It's
not straightforward, but I don't think it's too difficult, but it's not too straightforward.
Okay, you have an issue then. You can share your screen and let's do it again. Let's do one more screen sharing and then we can close for today. All right. So you have this account is able to see the resources, your SQL Server, and that account, is that your root account that you created or was a new account that you created?
No, my former subscription, my old subscription.
Okay, that's your subscription. Okay, now let's go at the level of Active Directory. Let me see the accounts that you created.
Active Directory.
Yes. And go on users. Okay, so you have a couple of users. Okay, log in with one of the users. Pick any of the user and log in with it. All right, pick that. You always click on this little thing here and it copies the name. And you know the password, right? I'm hoping that all of you log in with the same password. Okay, I will take our password.
Yeah.
All right, then go up here and sign in with a different user. Sign in as a different user. Sign in with a different account. Sign in with a different account.
Sign with a different account.
Use another account.
So should I paste
what you copied? Put the password.
Now I can't remember.
You can't remember the password. Anyway, so it's very simple. I'll stop here because we're already into the other class. But what you're supposed to do is that if you forget the password, you can go in there and reset the password, right? And then sign in, and then go back at the level of the main account. You can only grant permission using the main account, which is the account you use to grant your subscription, to create your subscription. Sign in with that main account, and then give it a given certain permission. Check what that permission is allowed to do when you grant someone that permission. Log in with that account and see whether you can do that. For example, if I give someone virtual machine contributor at the level of the resource group, right? And I log in, I try to create a VM on that resource group, it will allow me to do it. Now, if I have a different resource group and I go in that resource group and try to create the same VM, will it allow me to do it? Right? Those are kind of things, the tests that I want you guys to play with. There's a lot that you can do with this, what we've done so far before the class on Thursday. And I want you guys to practice all those things and bring all scenarios so we can actually take the time and revise the assignment that I gave you guys, and also the issues that you are facing on Thursday class before we continue. All right, guys, if there's no follow-up question, I will stop the class now and hand over to the